The hum of the crowded intergalactic conference hall was a symphony of languages and laughter, a vibrant showcase of the galaxy's diverse inhabitants. Here, on Earth, representatives from numerous civilizations gathered, each eager to share and gain knowledge. In a quieter corner of the hall, Lyra, a young scientist from the Xylar species, meticulously set up her presentation on biochemical processes. Her people valued logic over emotion, viewing feelings as mere chemical states to be managed. Alex, a human anthropologist with an easy smile, navigated through the crowd, his interest piqued by the various scientific advancements on display. When he reached Lyra's booth, he paused, intrigued by her topic. "Fascinating work," he remarked, leaning in to get a better look at her data charts. "I've read about Xylar's technology, but seeing it in detail is something else." Lyra looked up, her eyes reflecting a mild surprise. "Thank you," she replied, her voice even. "Our approach is quite practical. We believe that by understanding emotions as chemical reactions, we can better control them to benefit our society." "Control emotions, you say?" Alex chuckled lightly, rubbing his chin. "Sounds handy during a heartbreak, but doesn't that take away the essence of experiencing feelings?" "The essence?" Lyra repeated, tilting her head slightly. "Emotions are not to be experienced, but understood and managed for optimal living." "But where's the fun in that?" Alex leaned closer, his voice warm with curiosity. "Isn't there a thrill in feeling things deeply, like joy, love, or even sadness?" Lyra considered his words, her expression thoughtful. "Thrill is another chemical reaction, is it not?" "Perhaps," Alex conceded with a grin. "But it's those reactions that make life vivid, don't you think? Here, why don't you join me for a tour around the conference? You can see how different cultures handle this topic." Intrigued by his perspective and eager to learn more, Lyra agreed. "That would be enlightening, I believe." As they walked through the bustling halls, Alex pointed out various Earth technologies aimed at enhancing emotional experiences rather than suppressing them. Each exhibit brought a lively explanation from Alex and a thoughtful query from Lyra. "See? This?" Alex gestured to a holographic display of an Earth festival, vibrant with colors and emotional expressions. "This is Diwali, a festival of lights on Earth. It's all about happiness, renewal, and yes, lots of emotions." Lyra watched the display, her brow furrowed in concentration. "And these emotions are celebrated, not controlled?" "Exactly." Alex's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "It's about embracing these feelings, letting them bring us together, makes life richer." As they continued their tour, Lyra felt an unfamiliar sensation stirring within her, a mix of curiosity and an inexplicable lightness. Alex's laughter and his easy demeanor towards the emotions she had only known as variables in an equation were both puzzling and captivating. "Your views are unconventional to me," Lyra admitted, as they paused in front of a display showcasing Martian geological art, another form of emotional expression through natural elements. "Maybe," Alex replied with a shrug, "but that's what makes this exchange exciting, right? Learning from each other, seeing the world through someone else's." "Eyes? Yes," Lyra murmured, her gaze lingering on Alex's animated face. "Quite exciting." Their conversation flowed easily, the initial formality melting away into a warm, engaging dialogue that continued long after they had left the conference hall. As the Earth set and the stars came out, both Alex and Lyra realized that this first contact might just be the beginning of something extraordinary. Chapter 2. A curious encounter as the intergalactic conference after-party filled with the soft glow of ambient lighting and the gentle hum of varied dialects. Alex led Lyra into the vibrant scene. The room buzzed with the exchange of ideas among beings from different worlds, the air alive with possibilities. Lyra, still processing the new sensory experiences from their tour earlier, found the atmosphere both overwhelming and intriguing. "This is quite different from any scientific gathering on Xylar," she commented, observing a group of beings laughing over a shared joke. Alex chuckled, handing her a drink from a floating tray carried by a robot. Earth parties tend to be a bit less formal. It's about making connections, not just exchanging data. As they found a quiet corner, Alex continued. You mentioned earlier about managing emotions. I'm curious, does your society celebrate anything at all? Lyra took a sip of her drink, the unfamiliar flavors sparking a cascade of reactions that, according to her training, she should analyze and categorize. Instead, she replied, We celebrate advancements in technology and science. It's a formal acknowledgement rather than a celebration with emotions. Sounds efficient, Alex mused. But here on Earth, we find that emotions can fuel creativity. They can push us to explore beyond our limits. Haven't you ever felt something stir within you, a drive that goes beyond logic? The question lingered. Between them, challenging, yet gentle. Lyra considered it, her eyes scanning the room before settling back on Alex. Perhaps. Since arriving here, I've felt different. It's unsettling. That's just being human, Alex said with a grin, or at least experiencing life as humans do. Is that a good thing? Lyra asked, her tone laced with genuine curiosity. I think so, Alex responded warmly. It means you're open to new experiences. It makes life richer. Their conversation was interrupted as a group approached them, led by a human colleague of Alex's named Tom, who was known for his work in galactic diplomacy. Alex, who's your friend? Tom inquired with a friendly nod towards Lyra. This is Lyra from Xylar, Alex introduced. Lyra, meet Tom and his team. They work on ensuring peace between different planetary systems. Pleased to meet you, Lyra greeted, observing the easy smiles of the group. Tom, picking up on Lyra's interest in their work, invited her to share her thoughts on the peace processes between alien civilizations, an area closely related to her. Research on biochemical reactions and behavior management. As the group engaged in a lively discussion, Lyra found herself contributing more openly, encouraged by Alex's supportive nods. The discussion veered from diplomatic strategies to the role of emotions in negotiation processes. Emotions can be powerful in diplomacy, Tom explained. They help us build trust and empathy, which are crucial in resolving conflicts. Lyra listened intently, her mind racing with questions about the possible chemical underpinnings of trust and empathy. Could understanding these emotions chemically help in your diplomacy efforts? She asked, turning the conversation back to her area of expertise. It might, Tom conceded, but there's also something to be said for the human element, intuition, feelings, and the like. It's not all chemicals and reactions. As the party wound down, Alex and Lyra continued their discussion, walking along a balcony overlooking the city lights. So, what do you think? Alex asked. Could your views on emotions and humanity's views find some common ground? Lyra paused, looking out at the night sky, a tapestry of stars and possibilities. I am beginning to see that there might be more to emotions than just chemicals, she admitted softly. And perhaps understanding both perspectives could lead to something greater. Exactly, Alex said, his voice full of optimism. Maybe together we can explore that middle ground. Their dialogue, deep and reflective, continued into the night, building a bridge between two vastly different worlds, one logical, the other emotional, both seeking understanding in the vast starlit universe. Chapter 3. Exploring Earth, the Morning. After the conference, Alex had arranged to take Lyra on a tour of Earth's most iconic sites. They started in the bustling streets of New York City, with its towering skyscrapers and constant stream of diverse humanity. As they stood atop the Empire State Building, Alex pointed out landmarks and explained their historical and cultural significance. Over there, that's the Statue of Liberty, given to us by France and a symbol of freedom and democracy, he explained. Lyra, observing the statue through a telescope, noted, On Xylar, we don't have symbols like this. Monuments are typically dedicated to scientific achievements, There's beauty in that too, Alex said. But here we find it important to also celebrate ideas and the human spirit. It adds depth to our existence. They continued their tour, visiting museums, parks, and various neighborhoods, each offering a different flavor of Earth culture. At a local food market, Alex encouraged Lyra to try some Earth delicacies. "You must try a hot dog while you're here. It's practically an Earth tradition," he joked, handing her a hot dog from a busy stall. Lyra took a tentative bite, and her expression of surprise made Alex laugh. "It's different," she admitted, smiling slightly. "Flavorful." As the day turned to evening, they found themselves walking along the banks of the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. The cherry trees were in bloom, their petals fluttering lightly in the breeze. Alex picked up a fallen blossom, handing it to Lyra. Cherry blossoms symbolize the fleeting nature of life in many Earth cultures. It's a reminder to cherish every moment. Lyra examined the delicate pink blossom, then glanced up at Alex, her eyes thoughtful. "I am beginning to see that emotions can add color to life, like the shades of these blossoms." "Exactly," Alex replied. "They're not just chemical reactions. They make experiences memorable and life worth living." They paused to watch a street performer playing the violin, the melancholic tune filling the air. "Music is another way we express and process our emotions," Alex noted, observing Lyra's reaction to the music. "It's beautiful," she said, the violin's melody seemingly stirring something within her. "On Xylar, music is purely mathematical, but it feels like it tells a story." "It does," Alex agreed. "Each note can represent a feeling, a moment in time." As night fell, they made their way to a small, cozy restaurant overlooking the river. Over dinner, Alex shared stories about Earth's history of space exploration, mirroring Lyra's own culture's achievements, but from a different emotional perspective. "Your stories are very different from the ones we tell on Xylar," Lyra commented, as they walked back to their hotel. "Yours are infused with personal struggles, triumphs, and a lot of what you call heart. And I've found that hearing about your culture's focus on logic and science has given me a new perspective on the balance between emotion and reason," Alex replied. "Maybe there's a middle path that both our peoples could walk." Lyra nodded, looking up at the stars that were just starting to peek out from the twilight. "I would like to understand that path better," she said quietly, "to explore it with you." Their conversation deepened as they strolled through the night, each step on Earth's soil bringing Lyra closer to understanding the human condition, and Alex closer to a new understanding of the galaxy's myriad ways of life. The night ended with a promise to continue exploring together. Chapter 4. Emotional awakening. It was well past dusk when Alex and Lyra found themselves on a quiet stretch of beach, the conference grounds far behind them. The tide's gentle rhythm provided a soothing backdrop, and the moonlight turned the sands into a pale silver glow. "This is beautiful," Lyra said, her voice softer than usual. Her feet were bare now, her boots resting back near a driftwood log. "I've studied oceans and their chemical makeup, but this is different." Alex, sitting cross-legged on the sand, watched her closely. "It's different when you experience it, isn't it?" He paused before adding, "You seem more at ease here." "I'm not sure what it is," Lyra admitted, glancing at him. "Since I arrived, I've felt things. It's difficult to describe. At first, I thought it was simply the novelty of being on Earth, the variety of new stimuli. But it's more than that." "Like what?" Alex leaned forward slightly, resting his arms on his knees. "What are you feeling now?" Lyra turned her gaze back to the ocean. "There's a warmth, I suppose, a sense of calm, but also something more intense, like anticipation." Alex smiled gently. "We'd call that happiness, or maybe even affection." She tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. "Affection? That's not a term we use often on Xylar. How would you define it?" It's Complicated, Alex admitted. It's a positive feeling you have toward someone or something that's meaningful to you. It's not logical or measurable in the way you're used to. Lyra frowned slightly, but it wasn't in confusion. It was more the expression of someone carefully considering a new perspective. So it's not a single emotion, but a combination of different feelings? Exactly, Alex nodded. It's like layers, and it doesn't just appear out of nowhere, it grows. They sat in silence for a moment, the sound of the waves filling the space between them. Then Lyra asked, "Does it grow for you?" "Toward me?" Alex blinked, caught off guard by the directness of her question. "Yeah," he admitted after a pause. "I think it does." Lyra met his gaze, her silver irises reflecting the moonlight. "I don't fully understand it yet, but I think I might feel it too. I don't know how to explain it, but being around you, it feels different from anything I've known before." Alex chuckled, leaning back on his hands. That's kind of what affection, and maybe even love, feels like. It doesn't always make sense. The word love seemed to hang in the air, and Lyra hesitated. Love is a term I've encountered in your literature and conversations. It's described in so many different ways. How can it be so important, if no one can agree on what it is? Maybe that's what makes it so important, Alex suggested. It's different for everyone, but it's also something almost everyone values. It's not just a reaction, it's a connection. Lyra considered his words carefully. Connection. I like that term. It implies a bond, something that is shared rather than imposed. On Xylar, we value unity and shared purpose, but perhaps this type of connection, it's more personal. It's definitely personal, Alex agreed, his tone soft. And sometimes it's messy, and it doesn't fit into neat categories. But that's also what makes it real. For a long time, Lyra simply gazed out at the ocean. Finally, she said, "If I don't have the right words to express this connection, how will I ever fully understand it?" "You don't have to have the right words," Alex replied. "Sometimes it's enough to just feel it and let it grow. You'll understand more as you go." Lyra nodded slowly. "That makes sense in a way. Perhaps the understanding will come in time." "Exactly." Alex reached out not to take her hand, but to let his own rest lightly in the sand nearby. "It's not something you have to rush." The conversation lulled once again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of quiet that spoke of mutual understanding, even if that understanding was still forming. As the waves rolled in and out, they stayed there on the sand, not speaking, simply letting the connection deepen in the stillness of the night. Chapter 5. Cultural Revelation. Festival grounds were a riot of color and sound. Music drifted through the air, laughter echoed from every corner, and booths from various alien and human cultures stood proudly side by side. Paper lanterns swayed overhead, glowing warmly against the evening sky. Lyra followed Alex through the throng, her gaze darting from one display to the next. "Is every Earth event this exuberant?" she asked as they passed a human drum circle. "Not all of them," Alex replied, grinning. "But a lot of festivals are about celebrating together, bringing people closer. This one's special because it's intergalactic. Every culture represented here has a chance to share what they love most." Lyra stopped in front of a stall where a group of humanoid aliens demonstrated their traditional dances. The dancers moved with a fluidity that seemed almost otherworldly, their bodies glowing faintly under the lantern light. Lyra watched intently, her lips slightly parted. "They're from the Cauldron system," Alex said, stepping beside her. "They express themselves mostly through movement. Every dance tells a story, often one that can't be conveyed through words." "It's mesmerizing," Lyra admitted. "But I thought you said emotions drive creativity. Do you think they feel the same emotions as humans?" "Probably not exactly the same," Alex said, "but they definitely feel something. Even if it's different from our emotions, it's still meaningful." As the dancers concluded their "Performance!" the crowd cheered, and the Cauldron performers bowed gracefully before retreating behind their booth. Alex and Lyra moved on, exploring stalls that displayed holographic sculptures, alien cuisines, and rare artifacts from distant worlds. At one booth, a human artisan was painting intricate designs on thin pieces of wood. Lyra leaned in closer, watching the brush strokes. "This is entirely manual?" she asked, marveling at the detail. "Yes," the artist replied. "I like to think of it as a dialogue between the brush and the wood. Each piece has its own story." Lyra turned to Alex. "This idea of stories, why do humans place so much importance on them?" Alex shrugged, his expression thoughtful. "Stories help us understand ourselves and others. They're a way to share experiences, to connect. And," he added with a grin, "they're a lot more fun than just data charts." Lyra tilted her head. "So even this," she gestured at the painting, "is a form of storytelling?" "Absolutely," Alex said. "It's one of the ways we pass down traditions, explain who we are, and inspire others." They continued through the festival, sampling snacks from different worlds and joining in on games. At one point, Alex convinced Lyra to try a traditional Earth dance. "It's simple," he assured her, taking her hand. "Just follow my lead." Lyra hesitated, but allowed him to guide her. The steps were awkward at first. Her people weren't accustomed to spontaneous movements, but as Alex laughed and encouraged her, she found herself enjoying the rhythm. She even smiled as the music sped up and their steps grew livelier. "You're beads." "Getting it," Alex said, spinning her gently. Lyra laughed softly, a sound she didn't recognize as her own. "This is pleasant, unexpectedly so." "See? Emotions aren't all bad," Alex teased, still holding her hand as the song ended. "They make experiences like this possible." As the evening wore on, they sat at a small table near a stage where a human singer and a Grellian flutist performed a hauntingly beautiful duet. Lyra sipped a drink made from a Martian fruit, its tangy flavor sparking yet another new sensation. "I think I'm beginning to understand why humans value emotions so highly," she said quietly. Alex leaned closer. "And what's that?" "They bring depth," she replied, her gaze fixed on the performers. "They make each moment feel significant, like it matters." Alex smiled at her response, his eyes reflecting the lantern light. "Exactly. That's why we celebrate things, moments, connections, even our differences." Lyra glanced at him, her silver eyes thoughtful. "And you wanted me to see this because you believed it might change how I view my own culture's approach?" Alex shrugged. "I wanted you to experience it because it's part of who we are. But if it helps you see things differently, that's a bonus." Lyra nodded slowly. "It does help. Perhaps this is what you meant when you said affection grows over time. It's not something you calculate. It's something you feel." "That's exactly it," Alex said warmly. "And it's worth exploring." They sat in companionable silence for a while longer, the festival's vibrant energy surrounding them. Though Lyra couldn't yet fully articulate the changes stirring within her, she knew that something profound was happening. Each moment spent with Alex, each new experience they shared, brought her closer to understanding not only him, but also herself. Chapter 6. The Test. The Intergalactic Conference was entering its final days, and the air in the Grand Assembly Hall was thick with anticipation. Delegates from across the galaxy had been presenting their findings and forging new partnerships. Lyra had spent the past week immersed in debates and lectures, absorbing the wide spectrum of perspectives. Alex, ever the enthusiastic guide, was at her side as they entered the main hall for the day's final session. The topic was diplomacy, how various civilizations approached peace-building and conflict resolution. Lyra found the subject intriguing, particularly as it touched on emotional responses and their role in fostering trust. "Have you given much thought to how emotions factor into trust building?" Alex asked as they took their seats near the front. Lyra nodded. "It's a concept I've been exploring. On Xylar, Trust is seen as a logical outcome of consistent, reliable behavior. But from what I've observed, humans often base trust on feelings rather than empirical evidence. Right, Alex said. For us, it's not just what someone does, but how we feel about them. If you sense that someone genuinely cares about your well-being, you're more likely to trust them, even if they make mistakes. Lyra tilted her head slightly. That seems risky. What if those feelings are misleading? They can be, Alex admitted, but that's part of being human. We learn from those missteps. Over time, we get better at reading others, and we find that the emotional component of trust adds depth to our relationships. Before Lyra could respond, the conference speaker, a renowned diplomat from a water-based civilization, took the stage. The presentation highlighted different approaches to resolving disputes, from strictly logical frameworks to methods that relied on empathy and emotional connection. During the Q&A session, an Andarian ambassador raised a pointed question. Empathy may work among humans or similar species, but what about vastly different cultures? How can we expect emotion-driven diplomacy to succeed when the parties involved don't even share the same biological makeup? Alex leaned over to Lyra. What do you think? Lyra frowned in thought. Perhaps empathy isn't solely biological. It could be a learned skill, a way of understanding another's perspective, even if their emotional expressions differ. That's a great point, Alex whispered. Why don't you share that? Lyra hesitated, but when the moderator called for further questions, she raised her hand. I am Lyra, a researcher from Xylar. While my people traditionally approach trust and cooperation through logic, I've come to see that empathy can be developed as a cognitive tool. It may start with understanding emotional expressions, but over time, it becomes a framework for mutual respect and collaboration, even among vastly different species. The room quieted, and then a ripple of applause spread through the audience. The Andarian ambassador gave a slight nod of approval. After the session, a small group of delegates approached Lyra and Alex, eager to discuss her perspective further. Lyra found herself fielding questions about how Xylar might integrate emotional intelligence into their diplomatic strategies. Alex stood by her side, occasionally chiming in to support her points. As the conversation continued, Lyra realized something surprising. She wasn't just presenting data or theories, she was connecting with these people, these beings, in a way she hadn't before. She could see it in their expressions, in the way they listened and responded. It wasn't just her words that resonated. It was her willingness to engage on a deeper level. Later that evening, Lyra and Alex walked through the conference grounds, the energy of the discussion still fresh in their minds. You handled that really well, Alex said. You didn't just present an argument, you made a real connection. Lyra glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. It was different, speaking not just from facts, but from experience. I felt something as I spoke, something I think you would call confidence, but also a sense of belonging. That's what it's all about, Alex said with a warm smile. That feeling you had, that connection, is the foundation of what we're trying to build here. It's not just about policies or logic. It's about understanding each other as individuals. As they reached the balcony overlooking the city, Lyra paused. Perhaps I underestimated the value of emotions. They aren't just fleeting chemical reactions. They guide us, influence us, and help us build bonds that transcend our differences. Alex leaned on the railing beside her, gazing at the city lights. That's what makes all of this, life, relationships, diplomacy, so worth it. It's not perfect, but it's meaningful. They stood there for a while, the conversation and the night settling into a comfortable silence. For Lyra, this moment felt like a turning point. She was beginning to understand what Alex had been trying to show her all along, that emotions, though messy and unpredictable, were essential to truly connecting with others. Chapter 7. Confession Under the Stars. Sky above the conference grounds had deepened to a rich indigo, the last traces of twilight fading into the embrace of night. Stars glittered like tiny, distant beacons scattered across the vast expanse. Lyra and Alex found themselves alone on a quiet terrace, the hum of the day's events receding into memory. "I've never seen stars like these," Lyra said softly, gazing upward. Her silver irises reflected the celestial glow, giving her an otherworldly appearance even against the backdrop of the universe. Alex leaned against the railing, his arms resting on the cool metal. They looked different from every planet, but there's always something comforting about them. Makes you feel like you're part of something bigger. Lyra glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. "You often speak of connection, of feeling part of a larger whole. It's a concept I'm still trying to grasp. Because on Xylar, it's not about feelings, right? It's more about logic and purpose," Alex asked. "Exactly," Lyra nodded. "We strive for unity through shared goals and efficiency. But you seek unity through emotion," Alex chuckled lightly. "It's not so much about seeking it, it just happens. When you share something meaningful with someone, an experience, a conversation, it creates a bond." Lyra turned back to the stars, her voice quieter now. "Since I met you, I've experienced things I never expected. Not just sights and sounds, but feelings. They're still confusing to me, but they're also pleasant. Intriguing?" Alex's lips curled into a warm smile. "I'd say that's a good start. What's the most intriguing feeling you've had?" Lyra hesitated, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "It's difficult to describe. When I'm with you, I feel lighter, as though a weight I didn't know I carried is no longer there. I feel drawn to you, but not in a way I can fully explain." "It's not logical?" "It doesn't have to be logical," Alex said gently. "Sometimes the best things in life don't make perfect sense." Lyra turned to face him, her silver eyes searching his. "Do you know what I mean? Have you felt this connection too?" Alex's expression softened, his voice lowering. "Yeah, I think I do. It's more than just friendship or admiration. It's something deeper." The air seemed to shift between them, charged with unspoken emotion. Lyra's breathing was steady, but her heart, an organ she had always thought of as just a pump, beat slightly faster. She took a tentative step closer to Alex, and he mirrored her movement without thinking. "Your presence. It changes me," Lyra said. "I don't fully understand it, but I don't want it to stop." Alex reached out slowly, hesitating just for a moment, before brushing a strand of hair from her face. The touch was light, almost reverent. "Neither do I." For a long moment, neither spoke. The stars above bore silent witness as Alex leaned in. Lyra tilted her head slightly, their faces just inches apart. When their lips met, it was a gentle, tentative connection, a kiss born not of passion but of discovery. Lyra felt a warmth spread through her, not from her own body heat, but from the simple, undeniable fact that this human had touched her heart in a way no one ever had. She pulled back slightly, her gaze locked on his. "This is new. I never thought I could feel this way." "That's what love does," Alex murmured, his thumb brushing her cheek. "It's not just a chemical reaction, it's a connection that changes you." Lyra placed her hand over his, holding it against her face. "If this is love, then I want to understand it. I want to feel it." "Then let's figure it out together," Alex said. "One step at a time." They kissed again, a little more confidently this time. The terrace was quiet except for the faint rustle of the wind and the distant hum of the city. For Lyra, it was as if the universe itself had shifted, becoming brighter, more vibrant. Feelings she once dismissed as mere chemical reactions were now undeniable, real, powerful, and utterly transformative. As the night wore on, Alex and Lyra remained on the terrace, speaking softly, their hands occasionally brushing. The stars above twinkled in quiet approval, witnessing the beginning of a connection that would shape both their lives in ways neither could yet imagine. Chapter 8. A New Beginning. The final day of the Intergalactic Conference arrived with a bustling energy. Delegates and visitors milled about, exchanging final farewells and contact information. The atmosphere was celebratory, as if everyone knew they were part of something extraordinary. Alex and Lyra stood near the main stage, where the closing ceremony was about to begin. Lyra's expression was more relaxed than it had been at the start of the conference. Her usual measured tone now carried a warmth that hadn't been there before. "I can't believe it's almost over," Alex said, glancing at her. "Feels like it just started." "For you, perhaps," Lyra replied with a small smile. "For me, it has felt like a journey, a transformation." Alex tilted his head, intrigued. "Transformation, huh? That's a big word." Lyra turned to face him fully, her silver eyes thoughtful. "Before I arrived on Earth, I thought emotions were distractions, variables to be controlled, minimized. But now—" She paused, searching for the right words. "I see that they are more than chemical reactions. They are connections. They shape how we understand each other and ourselves." "You've come a long way," Alex said, a hint of admiration in his voice. "It's not easy to rethink something so deeply ingrained." "I had help," Lyra admitted, looking directly at him. "You've been patient with me even when I didn't understand. You showed me that these feelings are not weaknesses." Alex smiled. "Well, you've taught me a few things too, like how logic and emotion can work together. You've got a perspective that most of us don't, and it's valuable." They were quiet for a moment as the closing ceremony began. A human representative and a Xylar delegate stood side by side, thanking everyone for their participation. The speech was diplomatic and inspiring, but Lyra found her attention wandering back to Alex. "I've decided something," she said softly. Alex turned his head slightly. "Oh, what's that?" "I'm going to stay on Earth for a while," she said, her voice calm yet resolute. "I want to learn more about humans, about emotions, and about this connection we formed." Alex's eyes lit up. "You're staying?" Lyra nodded. "If I return to Xylar now, I'll be carrying only theories. But if I remain here, I can experience these concepts firsthand. I can truly understand them." "That's great," Alex said, unable to keep the enthusiasm from his voice. "We can keep exploring together." "I'd like that," Lyra said, her expression softening. As the ceremony continued, the two of them drifted toward the edge of the crowd, finding a quieter spot beneath a flowering tree. Alex picked up a fallen blossom and handed it to her. "A keepsake for your decision." Lyra accepted the flower, turning it over in her hands. "It's small and fragile, yet it holds meaning. That's what emotions are, aren't they? Fragile, but meaningful." Alex leaned back against the tree. "Trunk. Yeah, they might not always make sense and they can be overwhelming, but they give life its color." Lyra looked up at him, her silver eyes steady. "Then I suppose it's time I let my life have more color." They stayed there as the ceremony ended, the crowd dispersing in the distance. The conversation turned light. Stories of Earth customs, plans for their next adventure, and tentative ideas for joint research projects. Lyra's laughter, once a rarity, became more frequent, and Alex found himself smiling more than he had in weeks. As the night grew cooler, they began walking back toward the city lights. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt at peace with uncertainty. Her path was no longer linear and preordained, but that made it all the more exciting. And beside her, Alex felt something new as well, the thrill of sharing his world with someone who had seen it through completely different eyes. Together they stepped into the city, ready to explore not just the universe around them, but the one they were building together.